Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kim Barrett Show. I'm your host, Kim Barrett, and on today's episode, we are joined by Michael, who's got a little bit of experience being out there in the internet world, buying businesses, selling businesses, helping scale businesses with marketing, and we unpack what it's been like for him growing these businesses since the early days of the internet. We'll also look at a little bit of copywriting secrets. If you're thinking about like writing copy versus articulating your offers and what the difference is between those, we dive into all that and more in this episode. And of course, if we can ever help you with your marketing, head over to marketingmogul.com.au where we've got everything you need. But until then, let's jump into the show. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you making the time.
Oh, thanks. I'm so glad to be here.
It's great to have you. Now, I always like to start the podcast off the same way every time, which is if I met you at a party and we were just chatting and I said, Michael, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer?
That's an incredible, well thought out thing to ask because I don't know. No. Yeah, I've been thinking about that for a long time. And I would say that basically I buy and build companies. That's probably the most succinct way to say it, especially internet type companies. That's
so what brought you into that process and why specifically like internet companies?
Yeah. So it all started for me when my very first company that I did kind of on my own was actually a cell phone store. We sold phones and I did that back in 2006 and got out of that around 2007. And I was in the store all the time, it was like, it was just me. So I was just there. Most people, I was like, doing all of the searches. How do you make income from home? How do you, all that? And so I started to kind of get into that way back then. And I ended up meeting someone that used to go to my old church, and she got me a job in an internet marketing company. Well, she was actually in what was called direct mail, which is like when you mail like postcards and all this stuff. And I was like young. So she was like, hey, the internet? I'm like, yeah, sure I do. Because I was young, So I helped to kind of bring things more from offline to online. And it was kind of cool because it was a 7-figure company when I joined it. So it already had like a staff and all this stuff. So I was able to kind of jump in. And she also taught me the skill of how to write copy. And that's a big thing. And so I was able to kind of use that. And then throughout, of course, how things go, there's ups and downs and partner breakups and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I was able to kind of develop a skill of how to sell information and how to sell events and those kind of things. And so I started to find people that would need someone like me to help them. And that kind of brought me down like marketing and copy and sales and all of that. And then once you start going down that way, I had people saying, hey, I can't really afford to pay you, but would you want to partner? So that's kind of how I got into the company side of it. And then whenever there was problems, I tended to solve stuff. So I would always jump in. So if there'd be a problem with the, customer service or with finance or with payroll, whatever it would be, I would always kind of jump in. So over time, I kind of just became kind of not great, but good at most of the things, and great at a very, very few things. And so that kind of just became what I did. And as I kind of scaled up from there, I've been able to partner with some awesome people and do some good things. And now I work in the health space, and I really, really enjoy that a lot because it's more about like weight loss and health and fitness and those kind of things. I actually personally have lost over 300 pounds. So it's been a good story for me.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. I was on a weight loss TV show here in the States back in 2012. So it's a very, very personal, thing that I've been through. I'm not perfect for sure. I say I have about a 20-pound swing, that I can kind of go either way, but way, way better than I have ever been, so that for that part is cool. So anyway, that's a long rambly answer, but
no, I like it. I like it. So because I'm assuming, like, similar to us, like I have a marketing agency, and a lot of times people come to us and they're like, well, your fees are higher than I would want to pay. And like, it does come up. It's like, how can we, partner, work together type thing. What do you look for? Because I'm assuming for yourself as well, being that you had that success and you had that reputation of someone that could get results, a lot of people would probably be like, oh, like, I'd love to have Michael as part of my team. What was it, and what is it that you look for to make sure that it's actually a good business for you to partner with? Because I'm assuming there will be some people who are like, oh, maybe I shouldn't actually partner with them.
Yeah. So obviously it depends on where you're at and what you're trying to do. But for us now, where we're at, I like people that are in what I would call like a scalable niche, meaning that there's a mass audience out there, so if you have like a very small thing, that's awesome, but it's not probably for us, because we're kind of like bringing a bazooka, to it. And maybe you don't want that. So we always look for something that is selling to a core human desire, those kind of things that we know people want, whether that's like dating, health, business, any of those type things that we know. And there's a lot of people out there. When it comes to who the person is, we like people that have actually at least proven they have a product that people will pay for. Doesn't mean they have to be doing awesome, but it just means that you've got something that you've sold before. Most of our best people that we've been able to scale, we're doing around 6 figures of income. So one company that we teamed up with, we actually bought in. They had just hit around 800,000 in annual sales, which is really good. That's awesome. We joined up, helped out, tweaked some things, pumped in some more ad spend, and I think within about a year's time, we hit almost 5 million in sales. So those are the kind of companies that are easier wins, because if you already got something, and then obviously when it comes to anything where you're selling info, events, knowledge, any of those kind of things, the better the person can be on camera, that's big time too. Because we might say, here's 20 scripts, go read all these. Here's this, go film that. So there's a lot of that, and we love people that love people, if that makes sense, right? People that like to join on Facebooks and jump on Zoom calls and all that. So in that way, I'm actually terrible, because it's not my thing. I hate like doing a lot like this kind of stuff. It's like fun for me when I'm here, but I always have this weird internal dread about doing things. I don't know what my issue is, but I enjoy it when I'm there. But some people that's their thing. They get up every day. They just say that's like just the thing that they want to do. So we always try to find people like that too. But yeah, you're right. We get a lot of people that are just kind of like wacky, and they're like, hey, I have an idea for this thing. And it's like, oh no, that's not us. I don't want to have to go like fix anything or solve anything. I just want to be able to, make some tweaks and then scale.
And what are some of being that you probably see a huge range of businesses and whatnot, what are some of the small things that you see when you go in and you're like, oh, like if they just did this, it would, it would be much better. Like, is there any kind of consistencies you see across the board with the range of companies that you look at?
Yeah, I think truthfully, so to kind of segue just a bit, we started to actually say, you know what, we could also just buy companies that are already doing well. And so that's kind of been, a strategy. And so I review probably every month at least 20 or 30 packets that kind of go over all of the details. And I see a lot of the same things. So most companies can sort of like naturally get to around a 6-figure income ish. So, anywhere from like 80 grand to 3 or 400,000. And then they kind of cap out. And so what I see in those types many, many times is that they're sort of like a one-trick pony. So they've got like 1, maybe 2 traffic strategies. It might be SEO. It might be just some kind of YouTube or organic thing. It might be word of mouth. But in general, they don't really know what to do beyond that. They've got this one thing and it got them to a certain spot, and they just don't know. So the biggest thing is being able to have or create a front end type of offer that can at least pay for itself to bring in new customers. Most businesses just don't really have that, not consistently. So they may have something, but it's not really scalable. Like if it's SEO and they rank for 5 or 6 things, and that's kind of it, right? So I see that a lot. So that's one of the things that we always come in and say, okay, what can be a great front end offer? How do we tweak it? How do we make it more appealing to a broader audience? Or how do we make it priced to the point that it's like a brain dead yes offer, right? Like that, and that's a big focus that I have, is making like incredible offers. I used to think I was a good copy writer, and I'm pretty good, but I think my real skill is in creating products, because I started to find that if you can make a great product, your copy doesn't have to be that awesome. So many people think you have to be able to write this incredible stuff, but if you make a killer offer, as long as you get people to get to that step, you should do pretty good. And I use my copywriter kind of brain to create offers. And so that would probably be the other thing is like, what kind of an offer can you create that it would be really hard for people to say no to? Like this. And so many times people look at it wrong. They're thinking, how can I make like the most profit on that first sale? When the truth is, you need to say, how can I make that sale so good that people join? And if I break even, awesome, because now I have all these people that I can sell other things to. So
I think that's hugely important. And most people miss out on that. So what, like from yourself, for someone, because I know obviously you mentioned the types of people that you work with and very similar people that listen to this podcast. What do you see as the differentiation from like with someone writing copy? Let's just say that they're running to a lead magnet or an event or something like that. How much should they be talking about what the actual outcome is of the offer of that person taking that next step versus, what they're just trying to like sell the click? What's your viewpoint on that from that perspective?
Good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. So I always view and again, I'm going to talk about it from a more whole standpoint. So like you said, they're, getting people from A to Z. And so ultimately, the thing that I always try to do is I always just want to get them to the next step. So there is some truth to the fact that if you're going to write in an email, you got to think of every step should have one goal, one primary thing you want. And so the email, if the email's goal is not to sell them, but to get them to go read about what it is that you want to sell them, then the goal of that email should be to get them to click. Now, some people will write these really long emails to try to sell everything, and that's fine if you can pull that off. But most of us can't. I don't think that I could either. So generally, you use that email. So let's just say you're going to promote an event. You should do something you can in that email to get them to click over. And then even going a step back from that, the idea, the subject line, the goal of that is what? Click, right? Get them to open it. So you've got to be careful because you don't want to come across like real schemy or sleazy, but you want to use curiosity to kind of open things up. So that's one of the things, if I could give anybody like a magic power, it would be how to take plain things and inject them with curiosity. Because if you could do that, people will, humans, we love it. It's like an itch we have to scratch, right? If you see a subject line that just seems interesting. You're going to pull it open. And then if you read the email, and what I always like to do is like, if I'm going to create copy or write something, I want there to be value in that ad. And then I use the subject line or the headline or the call to action in the email is going to be, hey, go here to get this valuable thing. So whatever that valuable thing is, it may be step 3 in the sales page, but it's there, because oftentimes people don't ever really think about this, but almost every great sales page should have an element of education in it. And that education is actually the steps that you need them to believe or understand that sets them up to want to buy your product. So most of the people that teach sales copy, they teach it in kind of 2 or 3 things. They'll talk about, you got to hit them up with whatever their problem is, right? Here's your problem, bam, and that's true. And you got to say, I have this answer, and here it is, blah, blah. That's great. I call it problem promise, right? Problem promise. But that's great. But what you have to do also is you have to also give them proof. And some of that proof can come in the form of education about the problem, education about the promise. So that way, the people that are not just going to believe you because you've said it are going to want to go, so, well, that makes sense, right? So you almost set up, they call it, us copy nerds, we call it the sales argument, right? And that becomes like well, if you believe this, then you should believe this. And if that is true, then this is true. And if that's true, this is true, and that's true, then pay me. So it's kind of like you're going down this systematic thought process. So that is something that is important. And I think that more people should think about that. And that's also a great way to get opt-ins. Great way. If you can get people to opt in to watch your sales presentation, that's great. Because, a lot of people are like, oh, I have to create this epic lead magnet. Many times we just make the VSL what people opt in for because we add enough value in it. So that way people will watch it and feel like they got something out of it.
That's amazing. I love that. That's a great little range of takeaways there for people listening in or watching wherever you guys are tuning in from. So I want to go back one step as well. And obviously, because when people sometimes listen to people's stories, they're like, oh, it sounds like for Michael, this was pretty much all smooth sailing, became great at copywriting, started getting businesses. It was just very, simple, easy, surely no problems along the way. But what were some of the big challenges or hurdles that you kind of faced, and what was the process for you to overcome those as you were growing and then stepping into, partnering with businesses, buying businesses?
Yeah, I've had a lot of problems. Business, I always tell people being in business is just dealing with problems. Really, that's your job, right? Someone's paying you to solve their problem. But just personally, I've had a lot of stuff, going way back to when I first got started. There was the partners that owned the first company that I had a job at. They were a couple and they split up, and one went to one state, one went to this other state. And for a bit there, it was all on me to try to operate it. It was very, very, and that's actually when I put on a lot of weight too. I went from being a big guy to being massive. It was bad. So I went through all that. Then I had multiple companies fail, things that I would try, they just don't pan out. And so I think that I would tell people is, there's a saying that there's a stat that says 9 out of 10 startups fail, right? So my answer to that is, well, then make 10 startups, that's almost how you have to think. I've been through lawsuits with different people. The biggest one ever was that we were actually an affiliate for a different company, and they got sued by a federal agency. And that was a nightmare. And we got roped into it. We had to turn over all of our paperwork for all the time we were there and stuff. And thankfully, at the end of the day, we didn't have to get too involved in that side of it. And we were able to kind of come up with a settlement, even though we weren't the ones in it. Anyone who made enough income had to pay, So it it was hardcore. I mean, that was probably the hardest year. I was now going back, it was almost 3 years ago now, but to go through that, and at that point in time, we had a huge company. We had to let go of almost everyone, scale back to like a skeleton team. A lot of people at that point would have probably just said, "That's it, we're done." But I was able to fight through it. Had a great partner, and we were, we did everything that we could do, and we're still here, And so, yeah, I think anybody that thinks it's easy or whatever, it's just not, and that's just the way things are. And you've got to be able to sort of bounce back, whenever those kind of things occur. But yeah, there's never been an easy life, right? So all of us, we can just do the best with what we have, and we can't control what other people do. All we can control is how we respond to things, right? And so I've become very much a stoic now. I think I actually got a tattoo from like a stoic thing. It's kind of tough to see, but it basically says like love fate, just like accept it. And the other one, which is kind of, for some people it's kind of sad, but for me it's fun. It actually says remember death. That's the other saying. And I think it's kind of true, because when you view everything under the idea that we're only here for a set time, then you're more apt to just kind of accept things and say, okay, that's great. What can I do now? I have a saying that I call it 5-20-100. And that is, in 5 years, you'll barely recall whatever the thing was that was stressful. In 20, hardly anyone will. It'll be like, what was that thing again? And in 100 years, everyone involved is dead. That's like, so it's an odd thing. But for me, going through all the stuff that I went through, that was kind of what brought me some sense of normalcy. Like no one recalls like the Sumerian prince who was sued, it's like, who cares, right? And I think in some way we're all that kind of way. We're all just here temporarily.
Yeah, I think that's I love that, the 5-20-100. I might start using that myself. Now, Michael, as we get towards the end of our time together, I always like to ask the same question, which is there a question which I haven't asked you which I should have?
Oh, what's a question you should have asked me? Oh, man, you have great questions. I don't ever get these kind. I would say just I don't know. You've asked some great stuff, so I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe what's like, obviously being the things that you faced, the challenges you've done. You mentioned like going through some of these big hurdles. What's is there anything next on the horizon for you that you're like excited about, or challenges coming up that you're excited to face?
Yeah. So we're this is more personal thing, but I'm kind of pumped. My wife is going to start her own kind of like retail business. And I'm actually, just for me, because I'm such an internet guy, like I'm kind of pumped to be able to have like a physical store. I can like drive there and see it and go in there and help her do stuff. I'm sure though she won't want me to, because I'm very bad at that stuff. But like being able to like paint the place, what I mean? Just things like that. I'm actually kind of pumped with that. And I'll get to help her. So she'll get to see me doing some of the things that I do, like I'll set up her Google account and make sure she gets in maps and all that stuff. I think that'll be fun. And then also I am actually building my first kind of like tech startup, and I'm really pumped about that. It's going to be a software tool that makes it a lot easier to write longer form sales copy with the help of templates and an AI that will actually write for you. So I'm really pumped by that, and I'm just now starting to get the corporation stuff done, and the software is about 60% done. So we're getting there. That one's gonna be fun. I think that one could be something.
Very cool. Sounds exciting. So if anyone's been listening to this and they're like, cool, I like what Michael talks about, I want to find out more about what he's up to, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Yeah, so my main site that's been around forever, which is why it's such a terrible domain name, because I got it way back like 2006, but it's onlyonemike.com. ONLYONEMIKE, only one Mike.com. If you go there, I have quite a few things there. You can like find me. And then if they're interested in getting on the thing for the pre-launch for the software, because I will probably give away some free ones to get people in it. It's ProntoWrite.com. Pronto, WRITE.com. I think that'll be kind of cool. I want to find about 50 people to kind of, play with it before it comes out.
Awesome. Amazing. So guys, wherever you're listening to this or watching this, check the show notes above or below. And you can check that out and find out more about what Michael's up to. And if you know anyone that maybe they need to hear about some of the things that they could do to think a little bit bigger when it comes to growing and building and buying businesses, or maybe they want to hear some of the challenges that we all face as business owners growing as well, please do share this episode with them, as well as a little bit of copywriting genius sprinkled in amongst it as well. So Mike, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.